Welcome back everyone. So in this video we will discuss the prototype part of design phase. So let's just change this to prototype and validate. Of a phase of design sprint. So it will help us to have a complete view and wrap up this design sprint topic. So we'll start with storyboard. Storyboard maps out each step of the experience that you want to test and clarifies the pieces you need to prototype. At this point in the design sprint, the team often begins to brainstorm aspects of the product, some of which might be outside the scope of your sprint questions and prototype. Capture these ideas for later, but keep them focused on exactly what needs to be built for successful user testing. So in storyboard, it's not that strict. It still allows some ideas or miscellaneous that could be captured, that could be done later, but it needs to remain focused. So this storyboard is one of the useful way to create our prototype. It's called low fidelity prototype. So to do this, script writing is important at this stage as it helps align the storyboard to the user interview and clarifies the structure of what max or experiences will be needed in the testing. So as you can see guys, if we are interviewing a user, we don't necessarily need a physical product. So that's a misconception. So we can have this low fidelity prototype such as storyboard, and it will allow us to validate our assumption or test or our thesis. The facilitator draws the storyboard on the whiteboard or poster in a grid. Narrow in 4 or 5 key moments that will help illustrate the solution. You don't need to sketch out every single user flow or use case. Just focus on what you need to create to get accurate user feedback. So there's a facilitator that will draw this storyboard. So this storyboard consists of different user flows, and this user flow are carefully selected for us to better explain or best explain what is the thing that we're actually solving. And then because we will need this information when we get to the validate part, which we will discuss later. Map out the flow you'll use in the user interview script. Figure out which moment can be rough and which need to be well defined. So in this case, you're trying to get clear. So you may think that in understanding phase or defining phase, where you and your group mates are discussing your product or the ideas, is where you actually validate it. But no, sometimes you actually need to talk to the user with carefully selected user flows and see if that could invoke a feedback, a good feedback for the to the customer before we actually do our product. Assign task. For example, the researcher and project manager could recruit test participant while the designer creates assets and the engineer builds the prototype. So in prototyping, you're kind of transitioning to validate phase. So you need to divide the task, divide and conquer. So someone will or the researcher or project manager could be assigned to recruit test participants while the engineer builds the actual prototype. Could be a paper prototype, or it could be a high fidelity prototype such as a working software, etc. List all the tasks that need to be completed. For example, mark making, writing, stitching, reviewing, scripting for the interview, etc. Allocate each task to a sprint participant or form groups of 2 or 3 people. Keep everyone engaged at this time to keep people from disappearing. Schedule user validation sessions. So you're now transitioning to the validate phase, but you also need to keep everyone engaged or focus on the task at hand, which is doing the prototype and then assigning tasks to team members. So you would assign tasks to a group of 2 to 3 people. So if you have like 20 people, you can group them to 3 and then assign them a task. Prototyping tools. One important thing to note, do not attempt to learn a new tool during a sprint. It is far more effective to use the tool you are most comfortable with or your maker is most comfortable with, even if it's not exactly the right fit for your output. So this is a great lesson. So when creating a thesis, make sure that the language or the tools that you are using are the things that you are comfortable. So you may want some grandiose or like new idea, but if you don't know how to work with those tools, you're gonna struggle a lot because designs or sprint, remember, has only 1 month. So you need to know the language or the tools that you're using. So determine what prototyping tools is good for your design sprint. Digital prototyping tools, Keynote, Sketch, InVision, Pixate, Marvel. Voice interaction prototyping tools, Wizard of Oz. So Wizard of Oz, it's very useful in this design prototype because again we are still in the design phase. We design phase is iterative until we get to the final and complete product. Then after that, there's still summative evaluation or further improvement that could be done on our application. Now, the issue with that is that it could be tempting to create or use tools that is not appropriate for that design sprint. So you need to do that one at a time. So another benefits of using the tools that you already know is that it will allows you to get the prototype faster. Therefore will allow you to get the feedback faster in case that your prototype doesn't actually work. So there's a digital prototyping tools. Remember Wizard of Oz, which we've discussed in the previous video. It allows you to mimic the functionality without actually getting or creating all the functionality that your prototype needs to have, such as having some developer answer, for example, a chat-based application answer the chat instead of a bot answering the actual chat. So those are the things that is useful when it comes to this prototyping tools. Voice interaction prototyping tools, Keynote, Sketch, InVision, Pixate, Marvel. I think these are the automated voice response to mimic the voice response that your app may be trying to do. Digital prototyping tools. There's a lot of digital prototyping tools, so it is also the type to like use the prototyping tools, whether it's Miro board or any other tools. A sketch, it could be a sketch or just a simple drawing. A Keynote, InVision, Pixate, Marvel, etc. Tips for prototyping stage: take shortcuts and prepare assets in advance for your team that might be needed to make quick max. For example, create a sketch sticker sheet to collect logos, imagery, and screenshots of your existing product. So the photos and sketch sticker logos also help. So again, it's basically divide and conquer before we get into the validation stage, and also for us to better communicate what we are doing. So sometimes the huge part of design is actually creating or getting this physical tools or prototype such as image that will allow us further understand the product. So I think that one of the best way to explain this is the quote that the best way to learn is to take action, or you get the learnings after you take action. So here is where it is applicable. Take shortcuts and prepare assets in advance. If you're prototyping a physical product, hold your design sprint in a makerspace or workshop so that you can easily design that or present that physical prototype and collect the necessary physical materials you need to make fast prototypes. You do not want to spend prototyping time searching the internet for images or running to a hardware store. So prototyping time, it's also respecting the principle that when you are prototyping, it has a limited time because the stakeholders there has limited time. So usually you have the experts there and everything. So you make sure that you are prepared. So it depends on your project as well. If you're using only software, then you could produce the software, the working software, then make sure that it's set up. All the necessary dependencies that you need to create should be there already. Create a Kanban board. Use a Kanban board during prototyping so you have a visual overview of all tasks and who is responsible. Typically, this is physical Kanban made on the whiteboard. The teacher, the design sprint scrum master, use this tool to make sure everything is moving along and who to ask for an asset. Benefits, it keeps everyone up to speed on jobs that are in progress and what needs to be done. Team members can self-select tasks that still need to be done. Participants can request support from team members that recently completed jobs. So it might be simple to create this Kanban board, but it's actually great. So yeah, that's what you can do as well when you're, like, for example, in a thesis. It's, let's say you have created a prototype already. Now the next meeting with your thesis may be like creating this Kanban board, or like there's probably an app that, yeah, there's an app for this that will allow you to track and then put the to-do list there so that you can all be on the same page. So that's the benefits is that it keeps everyone up to speed on the jobs. Team members can self-select tasks that still need to be done. Participants can request support from team members. So it provides a visual overview. So instead of just text like messaging, it provides like a visual reference. So as we have discovered in the previous video, we are visual being. So this is one of the things you can do. So create 3 columns: to do, doing, done. Use post-its to capture job task description and place them in the to-do column. So a task description should be in the to-do column. Sort the jobs by priority, which the highest priority jobs at the top. So again, it applies the principle again of cleaning or having a salient information. That is the reason why we are prioritizing. So again, the more clear we are with our goals, the better we are to achieve it. Assign each task to a member by writing their initials on the post-it. When a team member starts a task, they will move to the card to in progress. Once the task is completed, the team member moves the post-it to the done column. Once the task is completed, the team member moves the post-it to the done column. Have the teacher monitor progress of the Kanban board and encourage team members to support one another. Narrate the storyboard. So after that, you complete the task. The team member moves the post-it to the done, and then you need to monitor the progress and then encourage other team to support their task that was given to them. Now narrate the storyboard. The facilitator begin the prototyping day by narrating the storyboard while the team listens and follows along. So there is a facilitator for narrating storyboard. So again, this is a step-by-step process again. Once we're done with the story, creating the storyboard, here we are trying to assign a facilitator that will begin the prototyping day by narrating the storyboard. So now we're actually beginning the prototyping day. We're on it already. So we have prepared everything. So preparation and the ongoing prototyping prototyping day is all part of prototyping. And then the team will listens and follows along. Use expo markers and post it to capture jobs needed. Remember, this is not a playback. Do not redesign the storyboard or introduce new ideas. So it's important not to redesign the storyboard because you've already designed that beforehand. So you're gonna lose all that work. Benefits: recap progress quickly, capture points of interest from the team, build alignment on prototype expectations, generate additional jobs that need to be completed for that prototype. So while narrating prototype and having other team or the team listen, you will be able to generate additional job. Also, it will be clear what is the expectation with the prototype. Are we all have the same expectation with the prototype? And then it will also capture the interest. So what is the most interesting in your prototype? So based on the 3 to 4 critical tasks, there may be more critical that you forgot when creating the storyboard. So this is where it will come up. Recap progress quickly. So in this, you're basically reporting your progress in your team members using this prototype. Now quickly recap progress to date by reading the storyboard from the perspective of an interview subject. So you will do this recap from the perspective of the interview subject, from this perspective of the user. Simultaneously, the team takes individual notes to remind themselves of tasks that need to be completed. After the recap, the facilitator or teacher captures additional jobs to add to the Kanban board. So the team also another benefits is that they will be reminded of the tasks that they need to be completed in this prototyping session. So while recapping using user interview with the storyboards, there's also the Kanban board where the team can see what is the things that needs to be done, things that has been done, and things that is being done. After the recap, the facilitator or teacher captures the additional jobs to add to the Kanban board. And then after that, based on that, the facilitator will ask probably 3 to 5 minutes for each member of the to-do list they think that will improve or that is missing on the storyboard that can be added to the Kanban board. Instant collaboration using Mural or Google Docs. So this method provides structured collaboration format for teams to store work in a shared repository. This allows the prototype makers to access copy and content to implement in the prototype. So here, it allows you to have a structured collaboration format. And then this allows prototype makers to access copy and content. So it's like a GitHub. You are able to access on the most latest updated file. So this is the GitHub of designers. What's the benefit? Eliminate the need to ask, did you update that? Or can you share that with me when you finish? Keep communication quick and asynchronous. Transparent communication and asset storage are readily available after the sprint. So after the sprint, you are able to see all the progress. So you don't need to like document and then summarize it. So that's another benefit of this. You're automating it like a programmer. And then first translate the job to Mural or Google Docs as Kanban board. So you are translating it to Google Docs as the Kanban board in a Google Docs. So instead of the app, so this is the app that we are using for Kanban board, Mural or Google Docs. Create section for each screen of the prototype. So you want to create a section for each screen or web page of the prototype. Team members place assets into the appropriate section of the screen. So assets or pictures or anything, details that they think that would improve the product. Team members, the teacher gathers and organizes all assets to make sure that board is accurate and ready for makers to pull from. And then some facilitator or checker will check all the assets that's being added by team members there to make sure that it is legal or appropriate to add. You don't want someone adding unnecessary or irrelevant assets there. Prototype makers copy and paste assets into the prototype. So the prototype makers, the one that's assigned to be able to contribute to that, which is you, the designer, copy and paste assets to that. You just need to copy and paste, and then comment and annotate to communicate edits or any additional content needed. Prototyping with version control. So here's actually more like a version control way to implement design. This recipe is a structured approach to keep the prototypes flexible, organized, and easy for the team to maintain. Benefits: prototyping with multiple makers and contributors. Version control and history prevents lost or repeated work. Rapid file sharing using new tools and streamlined workflow. Cloud-based collaboration connects to existing tools in an experienced designer workflow. So the cloud-based, it could be the same feature as a Google Docs provide. Rapid file sharing using new tools and streamlined workflow. So this, because of this app specifically designed for this kind of design version control, this is better than Google Docs because Google Docs are for general use. Could be used for office, could be used by developers, etc. Here, the differentiator is that all the changes, so in Google Docs, when you change something, you won't be able to see the recent, and you cannot undo it to like check the previous version. In here, all the versions are saved. So it's a large file to do this. That's why version control is the best way to do this, kind of like GitHub. So it allows you to prototype with multiple makers and contributors. So it's more complex to implement. You really need to know the specific command, but it's worth it for large development. Now, if you only have 3, the Google Docs is enough for you. Like if you only have 3 members. So download and install Abstract, Sketch, Graph, and InVision 10 minutes. Create a new project in Abstract 1 minute. Use Abstract to create sketch file which will automatically track all edits and revisions when the project is synced to the cloud. 1 minute. Draw or insert screen for the prototype in Sketch and save the edits. So you're now saving the screens or the pages in the Sketch after you created this. 5 minutes. Draw hotspots in Sketch and use the linking features in Craft to connect interactions and animations. So here, you're basically creating a sketch just like in paper. You have this box, or here hotspots, what it's called in Sketch. It's not box, it's just a shape that will allow you to link that using Craft to connect the interactions, and then you can add animation to communicate what you're trying to achieve. Preview and then commit the edits to Abstract 1 minute. Summarize the changes using the brief but descriptive statements for other makers to reference. So 1 minute. So it's kind of like a readme.md. You're trying to take notes. So in CRM tools, it's where like technical support or customer service add case notes, or in Salesforce or comments. It's kind of like that. Sync the sketch file to InVision using the Craft plugin. So you want to sync it, the sketch file, using the Craft plugin. Now create new branches in Abstract for each designer or maker working on the prototype. 2 minutes. So you want to create new branches in Abstract for each designer or maker working on the prototype. So it's like in the version control system, where you have a branch to provide that specific developer feature that he needs to work, and then keep that on that branch before committing it to the main branch or the main development. Delegate work based on the storyboard and Kanban jobs that focus on separate screens of the prototype. So you delegate to your teammate based on that Kanban jobs. In the case of conflicting changes, use Abstract to resolve conflicts to preserve the most recent corrections. So conflicts happen because multiple designer could be changing the same thing or at the same time. Check that your Abstract file is up to date with the most recent commits to the project. Repeat sketch edits, update the hotspot using Craft, sync to InVision, preview and commit to Abstract. So here's its picture, sample picture. Prototype playback. The interview moderator clicks through the prototype and reviews each screen. He or she talks about the related task and identifies revisions needed. So after that, you're gonna do this prototype playback again. So after you have done this, then some presenter will moderate it and then click through each pages of the design, and then it will talk about the related task and identifies again the jobs needs to be done. The stitcher captures the revision and it's responsible for delegating tasks to complete prototype updates. So so it's not like one facilitator doing all of that. You can assign a teacher that will capture all the revision and is responsible for delegating the task. So as you can see, for this multiple action, you can have multiple people, so it's less like cognitive load. Benefits: it keeps the user's top of mind to eliminate unnecessary work. So another way to look at it, instead of like presenting it on a user point of view, yes, you can do that at first, but after some revision, you're looking to like clean things or eliminate unnecessary work, or prioritizing. So eliminating and prioritizing, it's kind of synonymous, because when you're eliminating or making your salient information or your environment your environment support your goal, you're basically prioritizing things. So identify gaps or missing elements that are necessary to create a high fidelity experience. So in here, since it's just a low fidelity, you're trying to bridge the gap of anything missing or unnecessary or needs to be added. So instead of like after you clean, you're at the same time trying to think what you can add or what missing elements that are necessary to create or bridge this product from low fidelity to high fidelity. Orient the team around successes throughout the day to keep the energy high. So you also need to motivate them to be able to have empathy. Share the results with the stakeholders to keep them informed about progress throughout the days. So you also need to share the progress. After you've add elements, you check it with the stakeholders. Here is the progress of the prototype that we are doing with the designer. These are the things that we think might have add. So updates are important so that the you're not building things out of again the principle of feedback, where people could notice the mistakes or the triangulation. It is being applied again here. Spend no longer 1 to 3 minutes narrating the prototype from the perspective of the user. Share the key tasks and questions that the interview subject will be asked. So no longer 1 to 3 minutes if you're a facilitator for the prototype per screen. And then share the key tasks and questions that the interview subject will be asked. So share the questions. So another user interview again, the question and answer. So before they create this product, they have some user they interview that's using the product daily. So what's their hurdle? They're gonna ask that user again about their task and the questions that the interview subject will be asked. So you will gonna share, instead of 3 to 4 user cases, you're gonna share again another questions or task or another things that you will ask in the next user session. Add any errors or changes as jobs on the Kanban board. Once your team identify that, you put that in the Kanban board and then talk about the wrap up and debrief questions. So you summarize to make sure you are on the same page, so that there's no confusion when the development came. So why, how, prototype, iterate. So here's the diagram: why and then how, then prototype and then iterate. So these are very useful, guys. So I've personally used it. It's like the abstract laddering in understand phase, where if you're trying to go wide, you want to ask why. So if you're not sure if you are in the right direction or if it's the right problem to resolve it, you ask why. If you are sure but you lack the details on the how to's, you just need to ask how. So asking how, basically understanding, it's like in how we might, it's understanding that there is an option out there that is available to bridge your problem to your desired goal. So that's the how of things. Usually it's just asking ChatGPT for path that will allow you to go there. So it's not that hard, and then you just need to know the basics of development. Once you know the basics, you'll be able to follow ChatGPT on its hows. So the key idea behind WHPI is to time box the creation of an initial prototype. So here you are time boxing like limiting the time while evaluating the prototype against a clear and agreed upon set of desired outcomes. Grounding the prototyping process in a high level why before aligning on the actual format of the deliverable how you intend to achieve those outcomes helps break teams out of common patterns of busy work and overwork. So yes, it's true. I was one of the user of this technique. So tightly time boxing rounds of prototyping and feedback also ensures that most important high-level decisions about a deliverable will be addressed before polish and finish are applied. So if you time box rounds of prototyping and feedback, it ensures that the most important high-level decisions about a deliverable will be addressed before polish and finish are applied. So you're essentially prioritizing. So another technique for you to be able to prioritize what's needed is to limit your time. So if you know you have limited time, you will definitely prioritize things. So that's the one of the power of this time box. Now WHPI is utilized as a method in the final step act of sudden compass unlock sprints, practice, ask, acquire, analyze, act, or use outside of the unlock sprints. Practice to produce sprint-related deliverables because it is generalized to prototype any deliverable or experience. WHPI is particularly useful for thinking through how insights gleaned from the analyze step could be incorporated into a broad and diverse set of potential deliverables. So there's a balance again here on going wide and going how, because as it was said, it also incorporate a broad and diverse set of potential deliverables. So where you're doing this, you're asking why and then how at the same time. So for example, when I was creating our app, since I have restricted time, I only have maybe like 5 to 15 minutes to redefine the entire UI structure. So I just asked ChatGPT how to what's the best way to redefine the structure of our website in like 15 minutes. So sometimes like ChatGPT won't be able to provide you the correct assumptions. It may tell you it needs 2 days, but since I am using like a command line tool that allows me to check all the code on the app and then paste it in ChatGPT, it allowed me to get it in 15 minutes. So I was able to ask why. By asking why, I was able to find all the options available, and then by asking how, it allows me to like time box it using how, like the fastest way based on that available option. How can I like do it in the fastest way? So another thing is that by asking how, you're really asking about the interface that you're using, you know. For example, for me, my interface that time is CLI or command line, which we've discussed in the previous video. So the command line allows me to get a lot of data, because if I use GUI, it will take me like days to find that redefine of UI. So there you go. First step, note that at this point you are not thinking about the actual form or format of the deliverable itself, just the outcomes that the deliverable is intended to achieve. For example, if you were a trainer looking to teach a group how to conduct design sprints, an outcome might be participants are regularly running design sprints to solve business problems as part of their day-to-day work. This step should be time boxed to no more than 15 minutes. So this is the why. You're asking what's the available option and why are we actually doing this? Are we in the right direction? So it should be no more than 15 minutes for you to be able to move forward. Document your why and keep it in a prominent location, such as sticky note on your desk or a virtual sticky note on your computer desktop. What you will deliver in order to achieve your intended outcomes. For example, working from the above why, you might choose to deliver a half-day training, followed by regularly scheduled follow-up office hours to ensure that the training is actually resulting in changes to day-to-day work practices. This step should be time box to no more than 10 minutes. So based on your answer on why, on those options, there is nuance on like asking those why and before getting to the actual how, which is the options that you get. The options that you get will determine your how. Based on this available option, what is the best way for me to get into this to get to my goal. So if working in a small group, assign one person to create the first prototype of the designated deliverable. Within a time box of no greater than an hour, create a prototype of the designated deliverable. So again, these are the methods, an hour. So there is a very strict limit on doing this. So that's why it's very great. This prototype should as closely resemble the experience of the finished deliverable as possible. So in an hour, you're trying to create the high fidelity prototype, which is a deliverable. It doesn't need to show all the function of the product, but just enough to show the complete product. For example, a prototype of a half-day training with follow-up conversation could consist of a set of specific questions or activities that will be asked or conducted for each of these meetings. If working in a small group, reconvene the group to evaluate the first prototype. The prototype should be evaluated based solely on the question, what about this prototype do we believe will help us achieve our desired outcomes, and what would be refined or omitted to help us achieve those outcomes? So after this hour, you have created a deliverable prototype. If you're working in a small group, you can immediately reconvene and then ask this question. So what will help you to achieve the desired outcome, and what could be refined or omitted to help us achieve those outcomes? So notice again in this all of these questions, we're trying to ask like worst case scenario, or what's wrong, what's missing. It is not to drag us down, but to fail early, so that if in case or in our in the time that we deploy the product, we don't have those edge cases. So basically, we're preparing for worst case scenario, though others might feel negative. It's not actually, if it's actually usually used for design. So that's what I meant. So based on the round of feedback, assign one person in the group, ideally a different person from the first round of prototyping, to create a new prototype based on the feedback from the first one. So in this case, if you're, for example, in a thesis and then you created an app, maybe the next prototype will be better if the other member will create the next improvement on the feature. So maybe you will assign them to do this. It doesn't need to be perfect. They may fail, but at least they like understand where you are going and then what might need to be done, because again, we need to achieve triangulation. It is not ideal to have like only one person do the thing, especially if you have 3 members on your thesis. So there, repeat the prototype and iterate cycle as needed until the group is confident that the prototype captures what is needed to deliver on the desired outcome. This should be no more than 5 rounds of prototyping, and ideally 3 or fewer. So this is a great methodology to use. If you're in a rush, just 3 or 5 of these. So it consists an hour. So maybe it will take you a day to create all of this. So depending on the nature of the deliverable, specialized finalization work such as visual design and copywriting can now be applied as needed. So after that, once you created that function, a finalization such as visual design and copywriting, which are easier to do than those, could now be applied, since you are now able to create a functioning product. Usability study. This involves observing the user attempting to complete a task or set of tasks while using your product. So typically, the user is presented with different scenarios and asked to think aloud as they try to complete the task. So we have discussed this, but notice how it mimics a storyboard. kind of like the storyboard that was integrated in prototype earlier, the first one. Here, the first one in validate is usability study, where those storyboard or different scenarios are being presented now to the user. And then first, recruit 5 participants. So this is the key here. If you have 3 to 5 iteration for 1 hour of prototype creating, here you have 5 participants for the actual interview. And we have discussed this already as well, that 5 is enough to actually do usability testing, because these are expensive information to get or study to do. Set up a lab arrangement, 1 room for the interview and a separate room for observers. Introduce the participants and set the parameters for the interview. You might want to use an NDA or some form of agreement to protect their personal information. Determine how to document the test. If you choose to record the session, be sure to get approval from the participants. Taking written notes is an option. Cognitive walkthroughs. Cognitive walkthroughs a usability inspection design sprint method that places emphasis on most frequent tasks done by new or infrequent users. So, cognitive walkthrough, we have discussed that it is indirect observation in the past video. In a CW, usability experts evaluate the product, completing a variety of tasks using 2 questions. So here, you have direct and indirect way to evaluate. So validate is synonymous to evaluate, that we have discussed in the previous video. Here, you have emphasis on new and most frequent users. So take note of that. That's a good fact in this fact. Okay, FACT in this design sprint or design concept is that you usually need to test most frequent and new user. Again, most frequent and new user. So there's a reason for that. Now, most frequent, you want to like know how to serve your most frequent, or the Pareto principle, the 20% that provide you 80% of the revenue of the business. The new customer is also important because your business requires new customer. It is expensive to get a new customer. So here, here's the question: will the user know what to do at this step? If the user does the right thing, will they know they did the right thing, and are they making progress towards their goal? Pick the task. Determine the level of detail you want to use for each task and allocate time accordingly. So you need to pick the task based on the storyboard. So the task, the different stories, and then the level of detail to use each task. Usually this is 2 hours per participant, so you need to allocate. And then consider all the summarization as well, the taking notes, and all the edge cases. So the level of detail depends on the product and research questions. Create a happy path, a list of all actions needed to complete the task. You may need to bring participants back to this path if they veer off of it. So a happy path, so it's like the document where we are asking the customer or the participant in the experiment with some form, asking them yes or no, and then providing a comment. So it's kind of like a form for them to focus on the task at hand instead of getting paper themselves and then having to think through what they need to do next. So they just it can also serve as a guide that they just need to follow for them to do the task on their own without the researcher guiding them. Invite the participants, UX folks, and possibly other members from the team to a meeting and do walkthrough in a group setting. Now you want to do that in a group. Use the questions as foundations. The questions here, will the user know what to do? And if the user do the right thing, will they know that they did the right thing? And are they making progress towards their goal? Again, the key word here is progress and task. documents as each participant describe in turn how they would complete the task. So usually another thing is there is a think aloud that is being used here for the expert to say what they are doing while they're doing it. The moderator should ask the two questions before, during, and after each task. So there is like a test in before or in the past, present, and future for each task. So you're kind of like testing it with these parameters, or when you compare it in the understand phase, you're comparing it against a business goal or predefined criteria or question. If an issue is found, make a note of it and continue this process until every task is completed to the level of detail you determined in the beginning. So you can take a note, but you can also choose to use a recording, just what we've discussed in the previous video, depending on the details that you need. But too often, recording is too much. Taking a note, though, could look harder, will help you internalize it yourself, while at the same time getting only the most important and saving you time by not having to listen to that user interview again. So stakeholder review. So in this scenario, so we're in the validate test. We're inviting the stakeholders to join the design sprint for 30 minutes to provide feedback on the prototypes or early sketch concepts. So based on that result of this, we validated in the user and the sketch or the findings that we get based on that research. We're asking further more triangulation with other with the stakeholders. The stakeholders, as we have discussed, is anyone concerned with the success or failure of the product. So here, schedule review session as early as possible to make sure your stakeholders can fit into their calendar. If you're scheduling review at the end of the sprint, schedule it after the user session so you can share the results and help the stakeholder understand the user feedback. So you want to schedule it ahead of time because the stakeholder often have a limited time. So we all have limited time, but especially for the stakeholder. Now, if you're scheduling it at the end of the sprint, make sure you schedule it after the user session. So again, this sprint are never, it's just a fast way to iterate and get feedback. This sprint are not actually designed for us to create the final product. It's just a month sprint or 1 month for us to get to the, or to move to the next part of the development. Because too often, if we are so conscious in what the product will look like, which are the method of the previous design method, which did not work, because you cannot really design the complete product and then like produce that in a year better than iterating it every month, So consider creating a presentation of the prototypes and user and user feedback in advance to help make them review go smoothly. Technical review. In this scenario, invite the engineer or the technical lead to join the design sprint for 30 minutes to provide feedback on the prototypes or early sketch concepts, specifically for feasibility. For stakeholders, you're asking them broadly about what their opinions or feedback. They may add something, but here for engineers, you're asking if it's actually feasible, or is there the technology available or actually can do this design. Now, again, these are like a stakeholder as well, but it's not, they're also engineers, so they are different. So you ask for this for the practicality. Now, schedule time in advance so that your engineer and expert can fit into their calendar. Invite them to come in person and participate for user interviews or usability studies. So you want to have them in person. Consider creating a presentation of the prototypes and user feedback in advance to help make them review go smoothly. Sprint conclusion, recap, and next steps. Once you have completed your validation sessions, bring the team back together to review the findings. Create a visual presentation of the validation sessions or compile the results into a document. So after that, this sprint, you have a validation session where you bring the team back, all the stakeholders, the engineers, the user, and then you want to create a visual representation of the validation of the session or compile the results into a document. The important thing is that the team reviews the findings together to absorb the learnings and discuss next steps for the project. Every design sprint should have actionable learnings that led into the next round of product development. So there should be a learnings, a summary of what things that we have learned that will help the team move forward. An efficient failure. So here's the categorization for that. An efficient failure, the prototypes didn't hit the mark, but you learned something or many things and save your team 4 to 6 months of work building the wrong product. You might want to run a follow-up sprint. So this is the importance of this, because without this like tools or concepts, it actually makes us procrastinate. We wouldn't be able to create this thing even if it's a failure if we didn't try in the first place. This is where the failure that they are saying that is just a redirection, God's redirection, is actually bear fruit. So a flawed success, some ideas met your users' need, but not all of them. You learn something and can now iterate and test again. So you've learned another theory, and then you want to test again to make the product complete success. An epic win, the concept met your users' need. They were able to complete tasks and engage with all the features you map out. You are ready to implement. So you can now implement, and then it meets the user expectation. Now the issue with this is that you haven't learned anything, because it's actually aligned to your skill set. That's why you're able to do it. But the positive is you get the user expectation. Closing the sprint, the team has worked really hard, generated a broad range of ideas, and learned from their users. The sprint master should acknowledge all of this hard work and celebrate. So ideally, giving them small gifts, the learnings the team has achieved. A closing circle is a nice way to bring everyone together. Here you can ask people to share insights, what they will take away from the experience, and give people a sense of accomplishment, and perhaps discuss what problems you want to tackle next. Recruit interview subjects. So here we're actually doing the user research. Define and isolate your target persona to begin your search. So we've discussed as well how scenarios is better than finding personas, because more often personas emerge from scenarios. People are complex, like just because they are good in this part while they are bad in this part. So let's say a bad person from the society that could still purchase your product, right, on that scenario. So that's what I meant in my previous video. It's kind of like complex to explain. I don't know why I can't explain that, but it's basically in the previous video where we discussed the personas and scenarios. I think that's better because it's a long video. So I discussed there the personas and scenarios, but here you can think of this as creating a scenario first, and then the personas that emerge from there will be isolated and defined. Some teams have dedicated researchers or partners that handle recruiting for them. If you don't have a dedicated resource, you need to personally locate your testers. Now here, benefits: recruit qualified interview subjects, disqualify professional survey takers, Create targeted screener and ideal user types to interview. First, review sprint questions, goals, and target. So again, we start with the introduction. What are the goals of the business? List or out disqualifying attributes and qualities. List out qualifying attributes. Write a screener containing questions targeting your qualifying and disqualifying attributes. So even the writing needs to be cut in these smaller steps for you to boil down this big complex project into workable action. Publish screener to respondent.io or similar service. Make an interview and floater schedule. So after you publish, you schedule the interview, review and invite participants, and then review and invite floaters. Plan the interview. The official voltage control sprint moderator guide helps you get the most out of your 5-act user interviews. When testing with 5 users, it's critical that you run the interviews properly. This template is simple to use. Open it and simply make a copy and rename it. Then follow the steps include to set it up for your interview. So just search this voltage control sprint moderator. Now, benefits: save time by using a prepared templates for interviews. Document the key questions and target of the sprint for reference during interviews. Outlining your prototype's click path structures the interview effectively. Proven context questions unlock the interview subject insights. So it will also outline your prototype click path and then structures the interview effectively. So before we ask to provide the click path or the questionnaire, so here it is. There's actually a guide for this, but in the previous video, we also provide an example, a useful example, where the participants are asked a close-ended question, yes or no, and they are allowed to comment. So you can use that as well. Proven context questions unlock the interview subject's insights. So a proven question, you don't just ask any questions because these are expensive. So clone the guide, customize the guide for your test, print and study the guide. Follow the guide when running your interview. So you have to follow the notes or the guide, or you can just give it to the user. So here, project name and then date, sprint questions. So here you have this 5 questions and then prototype questions. So you're questioning about sprint prototype, and then setup, turn on Zoom waiting rooms, send the tester an email reminder with meeting link, do a dry run with the interview room and observation room before it starts, print this guide, turn on do not disturb or mute notifications, turn off power save sleep mode, clear desktop, pretend like you're organized, auto mute new attendees so observers don't disrupt, turn off chime for attendees joining or leaving. Important links. So as you can see, you were very organized and structured. Even muting has been thought of, because though it may be great to like communicate or speak to others, but in this case it's not gonna help. Important links: meeting link, prototype link, interview reminders, ask open-ended questions, don't ask multiple choice questions, don't ask yes or no questions, ask broken questions. So what is, bring your curiosity, don't assume, ask why. So it's important to go broad in this kind of like semi-structured interview. Reset meeting, mute and stop your video, stay dark and silent until you are ready to start, stop sharing, stop recording. Okay, testers, here you have a schedule: 9 a.m. and then name, 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m. and 2 a.m. and then interview, hello and welcome. Thanks for agreeing to chat with me. We're always exploring new ways to learn from users and improve their experience and testing new ideas. You've been invited to help us explore a high-level description of the project and then perspective. So a few of my colleagues are listening and taking notes, but I'm the only one asking questions. Okay to record, then start recording. Please be open and honest. There are no right or wrong questions. We just want to learn. Any questions before we start? So you're also asking before that we start and then before we end. Background and build rapport, 10 minutes, directions. Add your own open-ended questions below. So we're gonna ask it here. Typically begin with questions that help you get to know the person and more about their impressions of the space or themes you are exploring. So kind of like the asking for the age and their background to like calm or build rapport a little bit. So for example, if you're making an app for dog lovers, you might ask about their pet's favorite, pet stories and brands and other pet apps they use. Now introduce the prototype after you ask that question. Now I'm going to share a prototype with you. Is that okay? Prototypes, a lot won't work and there's nothing you can do wrong. I'll be here to help. With love, frank feedback. I didn't design any of this, so it can hurt my feelings. So again, it's important to be neutral in your emotion. Just trying to learn. Think aloud. Things you like, things you love, things that confuse you, things you hate. Take it slow and explain what you are thinking, wondering, and doing. I'll be asking you questions along the way. First, I'll send you a link to the prototype using chat. Now that you've got the prototype open, please share your screen so that I can follow along. So you're gonna send them a link, or if it's a physical prototype, send them the physical prototype. And then now they get the prototype open. Please share your screen so that I can follow along. So directions in this section, outline the set of flows, screens, or actions you want the tester to explore. Opening scene, page 1, link 1 to page 2, link 2, page 2, link 1, link 2, link 3. Then prototype 2, opening scene, page 1, link 1, link 2, and it's the same until prototype 3. So as you can see, you have 3 different prototypes. So it could be seen as 3 different stories in the storyboard. And then the brief. What surprised you about what you saw today? How would you describe it to a friend? What do you think this is for? Would you imagine would use it? How does it compare to things you've seen in the past? What are the pros and cons of this experience? If you had a magic wand and could add, remove, or tweak anything about what you saw today, what would it be? How would you feel about using this in the future? And then goodbyes and thank yous. 5 minutes. I think you've answered all of our questions. I've joined sharing this with you and hearing your thoughts. Briefly summarize a few participants' key points. Your input will be very valuable to me and the team. We really appreciate your time and feedback. Thank you and enjoy. Stop sharing, stop recording, stop video. So, the conversation principles we've discussed in the previous video is also applied here. You want to thank them and then ask them for a feedback, kind of like a survey in a call center. So yeah, master the interview. Critique your last interview. Think about how it went and what you can do better. Apply your learnings to your next interview. So after you do that, you critique it and then think about how it went and what you can do better, then apply it to the next. So as you can see, you're systemizing all of these steps, all these mini steps, and then learning from it and refining it to achieve this great or big goals. So benefits: improve your abilities as a researcher, follow a repeatable rituals to make every interview consistent and effective, prevent bias by remaining an independent moderator, maximize for honest, unfiltered, insightful feedback from subjects. So you might be asking why you should prevent your bias. Because you should achieve triangulation. And then you notice that it is iterative because it follows like the science of Bayesian theory, in which there's really no truth. It's a continuous process of learning, etc. So screen and select participants carefully. Make sure subjects are aligned with the target persona. Create an interview outline and moderator guide so you cover all essential points in the allotted time. Then prepare questions that align with the subject's interests. So you might be asking why you should prevent your bias. Because you should achieve triangulation. And then you notice that it is iterative because it follows like the science of Bayesian theory, in which there's really no truth. It's a continuous process of learning, etc. So screen and select participants carefully. Make sure subjects are aligned with the target persona. Create an interview outline and moderator guide so you cover all essential points in the allotted time. Ask context questions. So creating an outline is also prioritizing ideas, kind of like prioritizing it in a storyboard or prioritizing its affinity diagram. As you can see, guys, the principle of attention of prioritizing are so applied in each of this. It's just in different ways. Create an interview outline, moderate, so ask context question and build rapport and subjects to remove any pressure or stress. Disassociate yourself from prototype so that most honest feedback emerge. Don't sweat the small things, focus on value and remember to ask why. Avoid yes or no questions. Leave it open-ended. Ask subjects to repeat themselves as necessary to validate their response. Be flexible. Allow for new questions and paths to emerge. So, while you're trying to prioritize, you also want to allow the other new unstructured data to emerge. So, it's opposite or like kind of trying to clear out what is the best interview structure. So here it answers that it's semi-structured because you're allowing an unstructured data while at the same time having a one focus in the concept. And then don't forget to debrief with subjects to get final insights. Ask questions like how they explain the prototype in their own words and what they would change. Second to the last part, conduct the 5-act interview. The moderator builds a narrative arc that walks user through a high fidelity prototype to gain valuable insights. So here we're in the act process. The facilitator are walking through the user using the high fidelity or almost physical prototype. By immersing your user into the experience, you increase the chances to get the most realistic feedback. Benefits: a structured, repeatable, and proven interview process. Open-ended but focused questions elicit deep understanding of a user's experience. Run your usability studies with methods from Google and Google Ventures. So the advantage of this is that a structured process. So after you create the low fidelity, you create now the high fidelity and then interview or meet with the user again on the next design sprint. Build rapport and create comfort with your participant. Start with a friendly welcome to engage the participant. Simple questions such as age, occupation, and interest build momentum at the interview's beginning. Ask context question about the current problem the user is facing or their past experience. So after you ask for this report, you ask for their past or recent problem with the product. And then introduce this high fidelity prototype and remind the user to provide candid feedback. I did not design this product. Nothing you say will flatter me or hurt my feelings. I am interested in what you are experiencing today. Create the tasks that allow to gain insights into the questions you identified as being important to your sprint. Seek to understand the customer's experience, not specific features. For example, ask, what would you do when you are finished shopping? Follow up about the task. Ask questions like, what were you expecting to happen, or what would you do next? So another thing, let's back up. You want to ask for the experience, not the specific features, because there's a lot of way to implement the features. Follow up about the task. Ask questions like, what were you expecting to happen? What would you do next? Debrief by reiterating some of the insights you have observed during the interview. Ask things like, how would you describe this to a friend? Who is this for? What would you change about the experience today? Score the interview. Start with the digital notes so you don't have to type a bunch of handwritten notes later. Assign a worksheet to each sprinter so everyone has their own workspace. You can see each other's work. Benefits: eliminate the need to transcribe, post-its, or other analog note-taking methods. Make interview outcomes and results instantly visible. Timestamps make it easier to review the interview recording afterward. A shared team workspace creates more transparency. So by integrating a tool that integrate a sharing workspace, timestamp, and the need for post-its or analog note-taking methods and integrated it in one tool, you make the interview outcomes and results instantly visible. And then you reduce a lot of cognitive loads for all of the members of the teams, including the user, especially if it's a high fidelity prototype where the user are actually seeing most of the product. Open your scorecard and click on the worksheet with your name on it. At the top, you'll see columns for each tester and rows of why or no questions. On the bottom, you'll see an empty section for recording insights. So at the top, you'll see a column for each tester and rows of yes or no question. At the bottom, recording insights from those notes that you have taken during the interview. Take a moment to read each of the yes or no questions you have asked in this high fidelity interview. While observing the interview, if you can confidently answer of the why or no questions with a yes or no, record your answer. If the tester wasn't completely clear or said contradictory things, mark that question with a question mark for that question. So here, this type of templates allows you to mark the question that could not be confidently answered the yes or no for that question. So here, you're not trying to ask for like broader question or open-ended, while at the same time structuring it with a close-ended. You're really asking for a yes or no question, and then because you already have the prototype, so most of these are close-ended question or yes or no. Basically, if we compare it on the how part of the design, we're not concerned more about the why of the design or the overall options that is available. We're asking on how we could improve this because we've already chosen the right direction to begin with. If that topic didn't come up at all, leave it empty. When you hear interesting, provocative, or concerning things from the testers, record them in the insight section at the bottom. For each insight, use the drop down to select the current tester's name, enter the timestamp using the hotkey, and type in the insight. And then repeat for all the interview. So again guys, thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Peace.